the computer. Okay. Hi, everyone. So great. I really am glad you're joining me and that you have some interest, or some part of you has an interest in understanding who your whole self is and who your parts are, and how you how we all got this way and what we can do about it. And I want to introduce the Wild Mind model to you because it's one I've been using for probably 12 years and I love it. And I also use internal family systems therapy as well. And there's some things I love about that one. So I'll probably add some of that as we go. And I've done a little slideshow to use my own, just so that you have something you can kind of also look at. So we're going to just go through a little bit of that, like some of the basics, and then we'll hopefully by the end have a little room for questions and just your own experiences with it. And or maybe even a exercise we can practice together. So that will be kind of the gist of it. So let me screen share so that we can do this. Okay. So, oh, I do get to still see you all there. Exciting. Okay. So I want to, we're gonna, oops, I've been fast forwarding it. All right. So my name is Becky Trapto, for those of you that don't know, and I am a Wild Mind guide. I've been working with Animus for 12 years and started this process early on and just doing programs for my own personal growth. So I do this work, parts work in conjunction with body work, both hands-on and online. And I really believe that that process of learning to separate the voices that you hear in your head to learn to work with your own inner world is really important. So I want to take you through this model. Hopefully we can do that in 6 hours, 6 weeks of 1 hour. So, and I kind of want to cover, we're going to use the basic model. Let me see here. So we're going to be going through Bill's model here. And I'm going to kind of break it down, probably a section each week, and have to double up a little bit on some. And the basic gist of this map is that the outside is your whole self and the inside is your fragmented selves. So we're going to work our way around the circle first for our whole self for a few reasons. One is that you cannot heal from inside the circle. You cannot heal yourself if you are in your fragments. You can't do that with other people. You need to be in your whole self to heal. So we need to know the difference between what it feels like to be on the outside of that circle in my whole self, and I need to know when I've been hijacked into the inside. Though that being able to know the difference is going to be key. So that's what I'm hoping by the end you have some real ability to do that with yourself. And you really get to ask that question, who's speaking, so that you can learn to hear who it is who's speaking. So we're going to start with a poem because in, this kind of work, we use poetry. So this is a beautiful one that I think really does allude to being what it feels like in your whole self. So it's called Love After Love by Derek Walcott. So this will kind of help us step into this space. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters on the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own images from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. And a few quotes I want to read here for you. It's necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness until it flowers again from within of self-blessing. Perhaps it's time you surrendered your current form rather than concluding you have been a failure or a misfit. Perhaps it's time to allow the world to have its way with you and to carve you into something more essentially you. You are richer, deeper, stronger, and more a mystery than you know. You need to be schooled in your own depths. And from Carl Jung, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. So this is a map that I think really, its purpose really is to school you in your own depths. It's my own belief that this is where actual self-compassion comes from, is really understanding why we put ourselves together the way we did, why we have the fragments we have, what our whole self is. This is how we really learn to be more self-compassionate, more loving of ourselves. So I'm hoping that in this 6 weeks, you learn something that is more essentially you, and that you are richer, deeper, stronger, and more a mystery than you know. I've been using this kind of image lately of IFS uses the, being the driver of your own bus as their kind of image, and your fragments are often driving the bus. But I've recently been thinking about this as a parts kind of image, that the teacher of the classroom is you. The reason I like this kind of image is because people often think that, oh my God, like how many parts do I have? And I can't, if I have to get to know 700 different parts of me, I haven't got that kind of attention span. But if you were presented with a classroom of 30 kids, and it was your job as the teacher to get to know them and understand how they worked with each other and what their role was and what their story was, it wouldn't be so overwhelming. You would think, oh, I can do that. It might take me 6 months or a year, but I can get to know these ones. So this is kind of the image that I think that has been helpful for me. This is your inner world. These students are yours. They are often living extreme roles, not because they want to, but because that's they actually don't know that there's a teacher in the room. So we want to kind of go from having an unruly classroom of students who are on their own, who are doing their best to get through and survive, who are living their stories, who are interacting with each other in certain ways, which often does show up in bullying each other. So we want to go from, this is my, my image, from that to this, where there's an adult in the room. And that adult is a competent human being who knows how to help these ones really get along or be part of the whole system. So a healthy functioning classroom could be a really great learning environment for everybody. So we want to take them from their extreme roles where they're stuck to being part of a collaborative team. So we're not getting rid of any of our parts. We're just inviting them to be part of the whole, instead of Lord of the Flies scenario where they don't know there's any healthy adult there. So that's this process. And what I like about the Wildmind model is that, if we have this classroom of kids, we want to get to know them. What would help us do that? Well, in the Wildmind model, we use archetypes. So I grabbed you some definitions of archetypes here to help us. A very typical example of a certain person or a thing, a primitive mental image inherited from the earliest human ancestors and supposed to be present in the collective unconscious. A recurrent symbol or motif in literature, art, or mythology. So Wildmind, part of its charm, I think, is that it uses the archetypes to help us name some of the characters that we might find in our inner environment, our inner classroom, whatever image would work for you, which helps us identify maybe what their role is, what their story might be. It helps us get to know them. So if this is a relational model, what we want is to be able to get to know our inner world. And so the archetypes, those common ways of, those common words like elder, teacher, even bully, like those kind of common words help us get a certain kind of image, which can help us get to know who our people are. So I also love that Wildmind is a nature-based map. So we will be, which I think sets it apart. IFS doesn't use nature in their model, but this one really does. So we have practices that can help us go outside in nature to deepen our connection to our parts, but also our whole self. So the world will always mirror back your parts to you. You can find, I picked some of my own images. Bear for me is symbolic of my healthy adult, nurturing generative adult that we're going to talk about today. So you might ask for your own images of that one of you that is your healthy adult. So we can find these mirrors, which again helps us deepen into our own connection with ourselves, with the world around us. It just makes this model richer, I think. So we will be using some nature-based practices, or at least some invitations to go outside and deepen your connection to yourself through these ways. So back to our map. So we don't want to get too caught up in the, whether you think, oh my God, that's a confusing, image, or we're going to break it apart. So, and we're going to, you're welcome to ask questions, and also you're welcome to use archetypes that work for you. So if some of these words don't mean anything to you, that symbol doesn't hold any resonance, find one that does, because what's important is you connecting with that part of yourself and understanding whether it's on the outside of the circle or the inside. So however you do that, that's what's key. So these are some that Bill's used, and you can play with them or not. Like for instance, at the bottom, we're not going to do the South today, but the wild indigenous one was Bill's word for it, and my friend, she likes to call it the full-bodied lover of life, which I also like that as a picture of what that part of you might be like. So as I said, we're going to work our way around the outside. Today we'll be doing mostly staying in the north of this map, the Nurturing Generative Adult, because that part of us is key to healing our wounded children. So we need to have a healthy adult, a healthy nurturing generative adult. In order to do that, we need to know the difference between being a healthy nurturing adult as compared to being a caretaker or a rescuer, or somebody who's just compulsively wants to fix things. We really need to know the difference between that. And yeah, any other, a rescuer. So we're going to work with that today, and then we'll work our way around the circle. So I just wanted to put it up there so you can see it. You can kind of see where we're going. Often also just to say that the inside of the circle is way more familiar to us. So if I had started there and I said, let's start with the inner critic, we'd all be, oh yeah, I know what that is. So we all know those voices, but we don't know the outside as well. Not because we don't have it, but because we're often using it out, towards other people. And the trick is to learn to turn it towards ourselves. So most of us can have an experience where we know we've been a nurturing generative adult, but most likely it was in service to someone else than to ourselves. So this is about learning how to turn those qualities that, of your whole self to your inner world, to come be that teacher, to come be that healthy adult for those little ones of you that are stuck in your own stories in the past, are carrying the actual pain. If you look at the inside of this circle, those wounded children of ours are the ones that are carrying actual pain. And they need someone to heal them. They need someone to understand their story, understand the pain they carry, and to help them let go of that. So we need a healthy adult who's not going to just come in there and tell them to suck it up, or say, oh my God, that was so long ago, I can't believe you're still holding on to that. We need a healthy adult who'd say, sweetheart, tell me what that was like for you. And that in our healthy adult, we'd be able to say, tell me, is there more? Am I getting it? Is there more? Is there more pain you need to share with me? Is there more of this story that I don't know? So we have to be really willing to hold a lot, to be open to, pain that we've experienced ourselves and pain we've caused others. And so we need a healthy, nurturing adult to do that. And luckily, we all have one. So we're going to practice learning how to identify it and how to live from that. So the kind of basic premise is we want to work with the inner part of the circle, not from it. So I don't want to be in my escapist or my addict. I want to work with it. And I need to be on the outside in order to do that. And that is key. So I can't be inside my loyal soldier or my inner critic and try to heal a wounded child. That will not happen. Your inner parts will not reveal themselves in that case. So they only respond to the wholeness on the outside. So that is key. Okay, is there any questions so far? No? Okay. We are going to start with our whole self, the outside of the circle. And like I said, we're going to start with our nurturing generative adult. So I have picked some images for myself that represent that to me. And this isn't only if you've had kids, you can hopefully at some point we had that experience of being a somewhat healthy adult for our kids. But even if we didn't have kids, we still all have this. It can show up in our care of the earth. It can show up in our care of other people. So some of those archetypes are elder, mentor, teacher, leader. But I like the phrase also fiercely compassionate. This part of us is fierce in its compassion. This isn't a, I don't know what mamby-pamby kind of part of ourselves. Like it is fierce. This nurturing generative adult of you will hold your feet to the fire. It will tell you the truth about yourself, about other things. But the difference is it never leads you in a spiral. So you're in the inside of the circle, the parts will take you down a spiral of, that means I suck, I'm a terrible person, I can't believe I did that. It will have you off on some, the shame spiral. The north of you is just a clean, it's discerning, but it's also when that, I guess you could use the word conviction, like when you've done something, the north of you will just convict you and say that wasn't okay. But it will also have an idea of how you make that right. And once you've done that, it's just it's clean. There's no punishing, there's no, oh my God, or walking on eggshells, or, it doesn't have that quality. It's just, here's what I need to do. It helps me own myself. It is the part of me that's been able to say to my kids, I'm so sorry that you didn't get what you needed from me. Without any, in particular, a couple of my boys that I have had those, conversations with where we've been in tears, over what they didn't get from me. And then, when your kids say, that's okay, mom. And that part of you that wants to grab onto somebody letting you off the hook, the nurturing generative adult of me could say, actually, it's not okay. And you don't have to fix that for me. I don't need you to fix that or make me feel better about it. I'm okay with holding my feet to the fire, knowing that I dropped a lot of, I missed a lot of stuff. But the nurturing adult of me can also understand why I was where I was. So it has a both and kind of, it gets why I am the way I am and why through that I did these things. So it has it's fierce, but it's fiercely loving also. This part of me deeply loves me. really gets why I am the way I am. And yeah, is my, what else do I want to say about that? Really can hold everything that I am. Its capacity is huge, this one of us. So let me see, I think I put a little, the heart-centered thinking piece is that Bill talks about the windows of knowing for each of these directions. And that window of knowing is from a heart-centered thinking. So this part of us can really think, can plan, but it's really connected to your heart. This is not just a mental, exercise of our nurturing generative adult. It's deeply connected to my own heart. So it has, it generates life. So I remember Bill saying too, it's not just life sustaining, like where we keep life the way it is, it's life enhancing. This part of us knows how to leave things better than we found them, takes inspired action, is connected to our hearts, can tenderly hold everything. I like this image of, helps this young one clear out the cobwebs. And it restores that, the connection between us and our inner world. So it's very key, and we all have it. So also to say, we don't have to conjure these things up or try to, I don't know, go find it. We might just need, just like maybe exercise. That could be a bad word for people, but just having that, you can strengthen your connection to this facet of your whole self. One, just by knowing it's already there. So this isn't something we have to go hunt for per se. We just lost connection to it often. So, and also, if we had really good care, really good nurturing generative adults model this to us as in our parents, we'd have an easier time, I think, but often that was not the case. So what a lot of us understand as loving is really codependence. So this part is not codependent. Let's see what else yeah, maybe we should pause for a second and just talk about what it's not. Again, that, or there's any questions about that. I did write a few things. Where did I write those? Yeah, so this is not a codependent part of us. This part does not caretake in order to, make everyone feel better. It doesn't have that kind of walking on eggshells, protective, those kind of things. It's really expansive. Its capacities are great. It really can hold everything. So here's some ideas that might help you deepen your experience with this. So one that we often do is, and this is a practice you can do more than once for sure, is the writing a love letter to yourself. So, and what you might notice as you do that is how much caretaking or how much other stuff tries to get in the way as you do that, because it can feel actually really awkward to us. We're not actually very good at saying to ourselves, sweetheart, I see that you had a really hard day. I just really love how you, how you showed up today, and how like we're not as practiced at that. We're good at ass kicking. We're not as good at sitting down with ourselves and saying, here's what I really love about you. So one thing that could maybe unlock it, perhaps, is if there is something else that you feel like you could write a love letter to, like the earth, for instance, or a place on the earth, or maybe if it's more familiar, even like a grandchild or somebody that you just feel like, oh, I could really pour it out for that person. And you write what would be a fiercely accepting letter to that one. And you really validate their experiences and who they are and how that's exactly makes sense to you. So you do that, and then I would suggest you read that to yourself after you've done that, and see if you can hear it as if you were that one you wrote it for. And just see if that's possible, or noticing, this is what's great about noticing the parts of you that are going to get activated as you do that. So that's all good information. You want to see who gets activated. So I would highly recommend that as a practice, especially if you've had something happening where you didn't show up the best way you would have liked to, or you're feeling really critical about yourself, that you might try that. Sometimes you have to actually get up, shift your chair, move over, almost like put it on, stand up, get yourself in your healthy adult, call it up from yourself, put yourself in another seat, and then respond. And do that from this fiercely compassionate part of yourself, who again will tell you the truth, but it will also it's generating. So if that truth puts you in a spiral, that's not it. This truth will be a generating, even if it's hard to hear, it will create life out of it. So you might remind yourself also of others who you felt loved by. Sometimes this isn't a parent, but sometimes it can be, a grandparent or an aunt or somebody that you as a child really knew you felt loved by. And you might remind yourself of a particular situation that you can remember. And you might, in your imagination, go back to that experience and see what that felt. Remind yourself what that felt like. Because that's sometimes how we access it for ourselves. And hopefully you can remind yourself of a time when you really have shown up well for someone else. And you can remind yourself of this healthy adult part that has love, that really is capable of holding difficult things, of having difficult conversations, of fiercely loving. And remind yourself when you've done it. And you can call on it. So if it's there, if it's not trying to be elusive, it's not hiding from me, I can call on it. And I can say, I'm having trouble finding you. I have had to actually sometimes, when I've recognized that I'm inside the circle and I can't get myself out, I've had to call someone else I know is a healthy adult. And I've had to say, I have an aunt that I can do that with. And I've said, I can't find my healthy adult right now. I need you to help me. And then that person mirrors that, this is what good therapy can actually do, is that person mirrors your healthy adult until you can get back, until you can find it again. So that's all part of resourcing yourself. And the beauty of knowing where you are in that circle so that you can know what to do. If you can't get yourself back in your adult, get somebody to help you. So you can ask for a dream. These parts show up in our dreams. So you can ask for one. You can look around for other examples in life, in nature. Perhaps you're outside and you are wanting to deepen into your connection to this nurturing generative adult of you, which is why we just say NGA. And you're wanting to connect to your NGA. You can go look for a place in nature that speaks to you of that quality. So sometimes I've seen, it's been an image for me of one tree, looking after another one, or generating some kind of life. That could even be a stump that's generating life for other beings, something that speaks to you of this capacity to generate, to be fiercely loving. And you might ask that one in nature, how is it you do that? How is it with all this stuff going on that you manage to still be nurturing and generative and adult? I need to know about that because I'm having trouble. And so you might just open yourself to that conversation, and you will be surprised at how effective, how that can impact us. So you can find, other examples with people that are doing it well, other And so one of the things we're going to go into later, but about the idea around projection, is you might see someone who you think is a really healthy adult, who really seems to be that fiercely loving person. And you're thinking, you watch them and you think, oh, I could never be like that. So just to say that the reason that you see that in that other person is because you are like that. You just might have lost connection with it. So let that, that jealousy or that envy or that projection on that other person that you might find triggering, remind you that if I see it in that person, it must be because I also have it. And I'm just not living mine. And so what's that about? And you can pause to get curious about why you're not accessing yours. So let other people who are doing it really be that mirror for you of, yeah, how come I'm not living this for myself? In IFS, they have some quick, it's like the Cole's Notes version. If you didn't have time to check out what archetype you're in, these are some of the words that your whole self, these are the qualities of being in your wholeness. So if you are feeling calm, and this is, that calm, not the bypassing kind, but that real, even in the midst of difficult things, you have a sense of your own center. Curiosity is a big one. If you can move from being critical about how you did something to being curious about why, what that says, what's important about it, you've already shifted yourself into your whole self. So definitely compassion, like I said, confidence is one, courage to step out and do the work, clarity. Your parts can be very confused, like those images of the classroom. There's a lot of chaos going on and they can't sort things out and they don't know who's in charge. Your whole self is very clear, actually. And it's also very connected. So if you don't feel connected or you don't feel like there's any place for you in the world or you can't find your people, we're most likely in our parts because our whole self knows itself to be connected. I mean, it's connected in the inner world, but it's also connected to the outer world and it just knows it. It's also very creative. Like we said, it's generative. It knows how to create life. And mine after that, I think I can't totally see it, is that also it leads to having choice about how we show up in the world. When we're stuck in the inside of that circle, we are on tapes that are just constantly replaying. We're in that wounded child. We are just playing out that story all the time. The world is, mirroring that back to us. So those same stories are happening. So what happens when we get in our whole self is we actually have choice about that, how we show up in the world. So yeah, if you're feeling like I have no choice, I have to do this, I have to be this way, you're in the inside of the circle. So yeah, that's a quick, I like that one for a quick Cole's Notes. Okay, so just to sum up, we're working with our Nurturing Generative Adult today. Next week, we are going to move on to the East. Bill has conveniently done it as a map. So again, this isn't the only map. There's other ones out there. This isn't the map. This is a map. And if it helps you, if it resonates, then I hope that you learn to use it. It's helpful to have the directions because it just helps us find a way to plug in the things. So I often think, if your brain has a bunch of hooks in it for information, and as you build the information, you have a place to put it, it helps with clarity. So this map helps you have a place to put the things, to understand, and really when you're in your whole self, you're not going to be parceling it out like, oh, right now I'm in my innocent sage trickster, it's going to all be one, but it's helpful to break it down so you can see the qualities of each direction. So we'll be moving around it, and I hope it becomes really clear as we do it. But the big piece, is to be able to start to ask yourself who's speaking right now. and from a place of curiosity, so that you might get curious about, am I in my whole self? Does it feel like that? Or am I in the inside of the circle in one of these aspects? And that's, I think, the first step is knowing where you spend more of your time. And then eventually it becomes maybe a little bit more back and forth. And I think the beauty of it is, as you get more competent with it and more healing happens, you spend more time on the outside of the circle and you are less hijacked into the inside. And that, I think, is the point for me. If it doesn't make a difference in your actual life, who cares? If it's not impacting how we're showing up in the world, if there's not more of me available to live my life, then what's the point? The inside of the circle is very limiting. The outside is much more expansive. So when we're in the outside, there's just way more of us available to live life. And I don't know about you, but that is that is important to me, that I get to live the biggest possible story I can live. And the inside of the circle is just not going to do that for me. And the other piece to maybe add is that the inside of the circle can also be called our survival story. It's how we put ourselves together to survive our childhood. We all have one. It doesn't matter if you think your parents did a pretty good job or a really good job. It doesn't matter. We all have a survival story. We all have to do the work of finding our whole self and separating it from our parts, because that is the work of becoming a more fully human being. No one's exempt from that. This is how we also discover our own soul, is through doing this work. Our wounds are like like the song says, is where the light gets in. We were never not supposed to be wounded. We are. That is just true of all of us. And healing ourselves and integrating everything is one of the greatest things we can possibly do for ourselves and for others. So this was supposed to happen. And the tragedy is when we just stay in the center and we don't actually move out into our whole self. So Bill would say, if you haven't done the work of separating your parts from your whole self, you are living in your parts. That's just true of all of us. And so that's where we start. That's how we got through. But in order to live your own sacred story, your sacred dance, as it were, that happens in that process of separating who you became from who you actually are and living this bigger story. And that's when your wounds become sacred also. Okay, so I think that is my last slide. So I'm going to stop that. So then, yeah, who has any, if you have any questions or thoughts, I do invite you to share them. Any of it didn't make sense? What's your own experience with that nurturing one of you? Have you seen it operate? Or are you like, I totally don't have one of those? Mine's broken. And we can also do a little exercise if that's, well, I could actually give you one anyway, just a thought, something simple. So if you think, it's going to be complicated, I think simple thing to start with would just even be to put your hand on your own heart and to really let yourself feel the connection between your hand and your body. I mean, it's all connected, but to feel, just to feel yourself. And what if we just all started with, I feel you. I really want to know, how I've put myself together, who these ones are. I want to be that healthy adult. I want to be the one that is the teacher in the classroom who brings safety and calm just by my very presence. I want to be that one. So really just You know, I often do call myself sweetheart. So maybe finding a way that you could refer to yourself that isn't ass kicking. And you can also let your insides, your parts know that you're coming. You know, you can let them know that you understand there's some chaos in the classroom and that they might not know there's any teacher there, but just let them know that it is your intention to come in there, to meet them, to know who they are, to understand their stories, and that you're on your way. I think our young parts are okay with that. I mean, it's just good news to know that somebody's coming. Chaos has reigned too long.
Becky, I have a question.
Yes.
Is now a good time to ask that?
It sure is.
Okay. I wrote down what you said about need to be in the whole self to heal. And as you were talking and as I was listening and just, trying to, some memories come to my mind about when I feel like I have been in touch with my NGA. And going in the metaphor of the classroom, like, I wonder about that. So the healing, I wonder about my nurturing generative adult and the healing that has happened. Like, I'm not even sure how to ask my question, but and I might be getting stuck in the metaphor of the classroom a little bit too much coming from an education background. I'm like, did she go to lunch and the sub came in because or was she ever really here? And then I'm like, I'm spiraling, so I must be in some part of myself. Anyway, so this is where I am right now. So I'm just wondering, because I do believe there are definitely authentic moments where I have been in touch with my nurturing a generative self, that healing has happened. So is it typical that, I mean, do parts kick out the NGA or do we just pop in and out of it? Like, what does that relationship or process look like?
That's a good question. Okay, so one, it can sometimes take a little while to show them that you're trustworthy, right? They aren't necessarily going to buy it, right? Depending on the level of chaos in the classroom. So if we just go in with like, all your problems are solved, here I am. They're like, but have you met Jimmy over there? He's a, they're just not going to buy it. So we are showing up, even as a practice, showing up to put ourselves in there to say, here I am. I get that you don't trust me. I get it. Because really in this climate, there hasn't been a healthy adult. So that makes sense, right? So part of it is we are building that relationship, which can sometimes take time. So there's that piece of it. But also it can be that we're not in our whole self like we think we are. This really does happen where people will come, telling me how much work they've done. Like I've done all the work. I've done so much work. And then they're having these, it's like their classroom is out of control and they don't understand why. And because we can have a really strong caretaking part of ourselves who's kept the classroom calm, or has done something in there, but it actually hasn't been our whole self. So that can also happen, and it hasn't healed anything. So yes, they've maybe managed, and it's like a slightly older child that's in there who's tosses cookies and keeps the like who does something to keep chaos from bubbling out of the room until they get too tired and it comes out anyway. So there can be that where we're not actually in the part of us that we think we are. And so that one way to know that is when you do go in, or when you are working with young parts, they don't respond to you. So if they won't look at you when you're using your imagination to work with your, these ones that you meet, if they don't look at you, your presence makes no difference. You might want to check in again and see, okay, let me just make sure, am I in my adult, or am I trying to fix something? Am I afraid of what, right? Like if we've gone in with a fixer, it's not going to do it. So sometimes that can just be a good, again, a curiosity. Who have I put in there? Am I just trying to fix it? Do I want to get rid of these ones? Do I want everyone to stop it? That's not the same as, sweetheart, tell me your story. How can I help you? What do you need from me? That's really different. So it takes, I think, so there's both that it's a practice. They're getting to know you. And we're checking to see who is it that's gone in. Does that make sense? Does that help? Okay. The other piece that I've done too is as you're starting to work with these ones and you're building a relationship with someone, it is okay to say to them, so say you've met a part that has this particular, they do something, there's a strategy that they're using all the time for you. And you're wanting to be the adult and not use that strategy the same. But you're also saying to them, if I drop the ball and I don't show up as my healthy adult, I'm inviting you to use that strategy just like you always have. Because I get that it's important and that my system needs it. If I need to protect myself, or if, let's say, walking on eggshells, let's say if I'm someone, just throwing that out there, I did totally walk on eggshells. So if you need to walk on eggshells to keep yourself safe, but you're wanting to deepen into not doing that, you're kind of negotiating that if I put myself in an unsafe situation because I'm not being my healthy adult self, and I need to walk on eggshells because I've lost the plot in that moment, you go for it. Because they want to keep me safe. And so why would I object to that? Yes, there's healthier ways of doing it, but if in that moment I need it, I'm still gonna, it's like I'm building a relationship with these ones. So there's some give and take, I think, as I'm inviting them to trust me. But I'm also saying if I'm not trustworthy, don't put your eggs out there. Don't don't yeah. So does that make sense? Any other
Well,
thoughts? Yeah.
this has been really interesting, and I'm glad to have this because I read his book and kept looking at the diagram, and I kept feeling like I didn't understand what was really going on. So you're really helping, I must say.
Oh,
One
good.
of the things that sort of strikes me about this is that I feel like this is partly, for me at least, an eldering process. That I've actually been getting more, what do I want to say? I guess more connected in some ways with that nurturing old self without even necessarily always knowing. Wasn't calling it that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not calling it that, but it feels like I'm truer to myself as I sort of shed some things. I don't know. I'm just sitting here wondering about it. I'm not saying that I'm actually getting that done exactly, but it feels
Yeah,
somehow
but you're
that's
feeling it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
mean,
think, go ahead.
well, I'm sure people who are my age in their mid-70s also this isn't happening for them. And maybe so
That's true.
I'm not saying it's an automatic process,
That's right.
but and I don't know. So I just and then the other thing I want to just say is, and maybe way off base, but as I'm sitting listening to you talk about this and I'm taking some notes and so on, I'm thinking about the application, and we're not going to do this in our 6 sessions. I'm aware of this, but it does occur to me that our society, our culture, would use this so badly, not just each of us individually, but the whole mess of our falling apart, the fragmented selves that are on a rampage everywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'll have to think about that. But I just want to say that out loud, so it isn't just some thought in my head.
I agree. I think it's key that being able to ask yourself who's speaking right now is a game changing, that takes, I think often when people talk about being self-aware, they're actually inside the circle and they're aware of it. It's like I'm in my, I have an inner critic. Check. I know, but they actually are not. That's, to me, that's not self-awareness. That's just being, that's knowing I have an ass-kicking self-critic, and I'm trying to get rid of it, but I can't. Like it's not being self-aware, but that self-awareness piece is having a bigger, being able to know where you are in that circle, and how you got there and what to do about that, and who needs healing in your system. Like it's deeper than just, yeah, we all have an inner critic, or, or I'm a, I'm checking out right now. Like we have a lot of excuses for why we are in the center of the circle, but very little awareness around how we got there, what needs healing, how to move ourselves out of it. We don't. And so, it's so then often, in our relationships, it's my fragments in a relationship with your fragments that can work as, depending on how my caretakers are at any given time. But it can also be just a big old fragment shit show. I like to say that, it's everybody's stuff activated, right? This is, and I also think it's the tragedy too, is you are more than that. You are not just that inside of the circle. Yes, we had to become that to get ourselves through, but we are so much more than that. And that's the tragedy of, we're stuck in these limiting stories, and we think that's all we are. And we're often, the support we get is to keep us in there, but help us function a little better. If I'm in my attic, how can I just kind of function better, but I don't really do anything to shift that, my being in that place, because I don't know there's something else. I don't know there's this bigger me. And that's, I think, a tragedy. And you're right, in the second half of life, we should be moving and we should be living in our whole self, but we are really not. And so we're just getting older with our same patterns. And yep. So yeah, it's this ability to know where you are in that map at any given time is a game changer.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I have one
Mm-hmm.
really quick process question. I'm pretty sure I won't be able to be here live next week because I'm traveling. How will we get access to the recording of next week or any other week that we can't be here? Are you sending it out to all of us? Or?
Yes, I will send it. Well, okay. This reminds me of those days when we all had VHSs or whatever, and someone would record a TV show and it wouldn't work. Remember those days? That's what I think of. My intention definitely is to record those things. And so that's my plan. And then I will send it to you, theory. If planets align and all the things work out, it's going to come to you. So, yes, I will send it. And I just want to thank everyone for coming and for being interested in this. Yeah, like it can really change your life. I'm hoping that, this is a practice to do your whole life. And so sometimes we need to work with someone to have someone model our whole self and to help us learn the difference. But eventually we want to do that. We want to, ask ourselves those questions, be able to shift our own, to know when we're not in our whole self, to know what's happening and why. I think that's, at least for me, this is my lifelong practice. This isn't a nifty model we can all pick and choose our little things. And it's like, this is meant to shift you into that bigger story. And if it doesn't, find a different one. Don't use this one, because the point is to be in that whole self. And so I love this one. I love lots about it. I do love the IFS model, and we'll get into where those things match. And so, yeah, but I'm really glad you could all join me. And so I would invite that you get curious about your Nurturing Generative Adult this week, how it's showing up, where it's not showing up. And you might just ask it. I know you're there. I really want to deepen my connection to this one of me. And just get curious about where you see it happening. Okay?
Thank you, Becky.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for coming, and look at us. We're super punctual. That's our nurturing generative adult. Stops things on time.
I think that's your nurturing generative adult.
Gets it. Yes. So, okay. Thank you, everyone. You can, if you have other questions, you can email me or things you want to know. But otherwise, yeah, we'll move into the east of us next week, and we'll just keep building this container, and then we'll work with our insides a little bit further down the road. Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.